These are the memories of Marjorie Jackson, née Shepherd, whose family have been members of Wheatley United Reformed Church since before 1900, and who is now in 2008 the oldest member of our church. Will you begin by telling us your first memories of the church in Wheatley, please, Marjorie?
Well, I think my real first memory were of Christmas. The party, first of all, we used to have with the family at my grandmother's and my grandfather's house. That was all the family came together, then. And then at church, again, it was Sunday school. I remember that we used to go on Sunday afternoons from 2:30 to 3:30. And then, of course, in those days, you went again in the evening with your parents because there was only one service a day because there wasn't a resident minister in those days. The minister came from Oxford, and his name was the Reverend Fry. As my father's, three of my father's brothers, after my grandfather retired as superintendent of the Sunday school, they took it in turn, but not for very long, Then we used to have the Christmas party, Sunday school Christmas party, at which one was given a prize, and it's always a book prize, and the book prize consisted on how many attendances you made. So if you made 52 attendances, you had quite a nice book, And after that, we had always had an apple and some sweets and a new penny, which we kids used to think was gold because they were always so shiny. Then in the summer, we used to have perhaps a tea in the field behind, which belonged to my grandfather, behind the houses in Crane Road that he built. And we used to have races and things like that. But after he retired, that sort of died a natural death. And then we used to go on outings. And it was either to Southsea, which I didn't used to like very much because I used to get travel sick, or the zoo, or a place called Burnham Beeches, which I think is still available. Why we used to go to Burnham Beeches, I do not know, because there was nothing there, bar just somewhere where you could run about, But anyway, we used to go there. But the highlight of the summer, really, apart from the outing, was the Sunday school anniversary. This used to take place on one Sunday in the summer, and it was an afternoon service and an evening service, mainly run by the children, with a special preacher actually for the children. And we children used to have had practiced weeks ahead from a music songbook, you could call it, but they were religious little songs, and we used to have a different one every year, and we used to learn these songs. Sometimes the girls sang, sometimes the boys sang, somebody sang on their own, and then there was, you learned poems or did readings, and it was quite a little performance, I think all we girls used to hope we'd get a new dress for the occasion, And yes, and that went on very well, and that, as I say, that most services were always in the evening for the grown-ups, you know. It wasn't till much later that, well, I think it was when the Reverend Ives came at the beginning of the war that they started to, first of all, have a children's service in the morning.
Which war are we talking about? The First World War. Are we talking about the First World War?
No.
The Second.
The Second, no. I wasn't with us at the First World War.
When were you born?
1927.
Oh, right. Of course, yeah.
So, anyway, and, yes, so, but, and moving on then to wartime, then they started, the Reverend Ives started a children's church in the morning. There was still Sunday school in the afternoon and an evening service. So you went to church nearly all day on Sunday, you know. And, yes, then, and also during the war, I wasn't allowed to join. I badly wanted to be a guide, you see, but I wasn't allowed to be a guide because they wouldn't have me, because I didn't go to St Mary's.
And also the grammar school.
That's right, yeah, yes, that happened as well, because you didn't stand a hope, you know, because you went to chapel, as it was then called. Also, talking about 11 plus, as it used to be called then, that was horrendous for us children, because it had always been chalk and talk with the teachers, and we'd never seen a printed examination paper in our life before. And suddenly you went into this, one of the classrooms at school, and you were presented with this paper with all these questions on it, and you were a bit baffled by it, you know. It was a bit horrendous, really, you know. And I think none of us really, unless those who were very good at braving things out, you know, we got so baffled with it, we didn't give our best, you know. But yeah, so I did pass that. But also during the war, there was two ladies came to church, and they were at Cuddesdon. They came with what is called the Queen Anne's Bounty, and they were moved to Cuddesdon, Cuddesdon Palace. Now that was destroyed several years ago by fire, but they all lived there. One of the ladies, her parents had been missionaries, and they finally got back to England, and she did, I think, come and live with them. Well, these ladies used to come to church, and they started a group called the Campaigners, which was a bit like the Guides. You know, you work for badges and things like that. And there used to be still a flag in the church once it's put down, but I expect it's got moth-eaten, thrown out by now, you know. But yes, it was quite a good organisation, you know. Yes, we used to enjoy that once a week, yeah. And that was up until, like, I left school, and then at 14, of course, you were made members of the church.
Automatic.
If you wanted to, yeah, yes, it wasn't. You were asked at 14, you know, if you wanted to be made members. I think there was about 4 of us when I was made a member. Yeah, I don't think there were any boys. I think we were all girls. Yeah, so it's been a few years since I was made a member of the church. Yeah.
Well, if you were 14, that was 27, 37.
16.
That was 41 during the war, was it?
Sorry?
Was it during the war?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
41.
Yeah. So there we go. A few years ago. Yeah.
And then you went to work.
And I went to work, yeah.
Was it local? Where did you work?
I worked at Morris's.
Oh,
because it's wartime, you see. So I used to... I left school on Friday and I started work on Monday. And my father bought me a new boat to go to work on because there was a works bus, I must say that. But I used to cycle. And yes, I worked in the offices at Morris's, and because it was felt that was right because it was wartime. And we used to do 2 shifts a week. That was 2 evenings a week in the factory itself. We used to go over when we finished work into the factory and put screws on shell cases, you know. And but how those girls worked in there day in, day out, it was remarkable, you know.
Why did you have to go 2 nights a week then? Was there a reason? Because you were in the offices?
Yeah, it was a voluntary arrangement, you know that we didn't get paid for what we did, you know, but they asked. It was, you know, when they were very, very short of arms and things like that, and they were trying to get out as much as ever they could, you know, and we used to go across and do a little bit. It was only a little bit, but we felt we were helping in some way or other, you know. But yeah, we used to go twice a week. Yeah, and then other times when I left school, there was a canteen at the Merry Bells for the local troops who were around, like, because Shotover was full of troops, you know. And I mean, there are tents in the fields as well as people living in the house and things like that, you know. And because a lot of these fellows, they didn't want to hang about in the pubs, so I think it's the Women's Institute who first thought of it, and they opened a canteen in the Merry Bells, you know, and some of us used to go and help these ladies in the evening, you know. Well, because, the fellas, you know, away from, like my mum used to say, well, I hope somebody's doing this for my sons, you know, so that's how they thought.
And what other major events can you remember from about that time, or after the war, or what happened? Can you remember what happened when the war ended? Church-wise, was there a big celebration?
Well, I know the day the war in Europe finished, because where I was working there was one of the gentlemen clerks, his daughter was connected to the army, and she rang her father up and told him, you know, so we knew in quite good time, you know, and then it was announced, of course, on the wireless. And there was a huge, where all the stuff come from, nobody ever knew, a huge bonfire made in Crown Square, as they call it now, you know, and food and drink came from anywhere that night, and everybody had a very good time. You know, yes, it was. But when it was the Japanese one, I wasn't here. I was staying with a friend on her farm. I was giving them a helping hand because I was on holiday, and we had a whale of a time over at Duns Tew. That's where I was, you know. Yeah. And she had an Italian prisoner of war to help on the farm, and we dressed him up and took him round, and nobody knew who he was. So I mean, that's how I spent the 2 sort of evenings after the war ended, you know. But then things sort of It calmed down after a bit, sort of thing. But, so that was that much, and it was nice to get all the fellas home again, sort of thing, because you did worry.
Did Bruce go to war?
Bruce was in Burma, the same as Bill, because they met in transit once, strangely enough, they saw one another for a little while, It wasn't long, but it was a little while. My other brother was in France because he came out of France when at the bad time, and they'd had a pretty rough time, I think, but these fellas, they never talked about it at all, ever. So you never know just what they all went through, They just want to forget it, which is understandable, Yes, I mean, it must have been a horrendous thing, some of it. But, yeah.
So when were you married then, Marjorie? When did you marry Bill? Just after the war, or?
Yes. He came home in the summer and we were married at the winter time. Yes, because Bruce and Vera were married first on the 11th of May, and we were married in December, on the 14th of December. We did the Congregational.
And were you married in church?
Yes, we were married in church in 79, 6. About, I was 79 from...
Should I switch it off for a minute?
It's